Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie noob nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink, I have in sample form. It's by, actually, Graf von Faber-Castell. It's their Garnet Red. Full disclosure, I have a Garnet Red I like a lot more than this, but we'll get into that later. It's sort of a light, I'll call it light maroon. Yep. All the tests were done in these two pens, both Lamy Safaris. One has a 1.1 nib, so a stub, and one with an extra fine nib for some compare and contrast. Now, let's check out the chromatography. Some interesting stuff going on here in the chromatography. If my camera will ever focus on what I want it to. Danke. Okay, you can see this gray down here at the bottom, right? Like where the initial drop was put, and then there's this like light lavender, almost a pink, and then the pink goes up, and then you get this yellow, or not even yellow, it's more like an orange, like a peachy orange right up at the top. Weird. Then I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it, and that gray gets darker, the halo around it gets darker, and the orange is still there. I don't know what's going on. Now, there is something about this ink that makes it oddly unique. Out of all of my samples, the only thing that came even remotely close to it was Diatramentus Cherry, and as you can probably tell, there's more red in that. Weird. Okay. Paper test. Top down to density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. I'm going to hold this still so you can get a look. Yep. Now, as I say here, in the effort of full disclosure, I absolutely love Pelikan's Edelstein Garnet. It's an amazing ink. It's fantastic. It's pretty. It does all kinds of pretty stuff. I think it's discontinued. But also, it's actually the color of Garnet. There tends to be a little bit of an orange undertone and more of a like bright barn door red color. This is, I've never seen a garnet in this color, which is, alright, I'm going to be blunt, it's a watery maroon. Upside of watery is you get shading. Yay, question mark? Yeah, if this is a color that you love, you go ahead and love this color. It is a lovely color for this color. It's just so not my bag. Anyways, the extra fine took 4.5 seconds. The stub took 7. Yeah, this stuff just isn't my jam. And it looks thin. I mean, you can see all the lines through here. You can see it through the writing. That's not what I like to see, but yeah. And it dries on the nib really quickly. Yeah, so like I had both pens open and I do this and I pick up the other one, do that, and pick up the other one, do this. And just in the time it took to write this, which was not even a minute, that happened on the stub when I picked that up again. So that's something weird that this ink does. Yeah. Now, I was expecting to see a gray undertone and the red to wash away like we saw in the chromatography, but that is not what happened. It just sort of made a hazy mess of watery maroon and some explodey bits. But yeah, no bleed, no feather, no spread, no sheen, no echo. All good in that regard. But yeah, it's there's something kind of weird about this ink. Do you have this experience with this ink? Comment down below, please. I'm curious. The drying on the nib. Anyways, this is, I mean, it's watery. It looks thin. It looks undersaturated. It looks like there should be more ink in this ink. I mean, here it almost starts to look like it's turning into just a pink rather than a light maroon. You do get a halo effect, which I generally like. Because it's so thin, you do get very extreme shading. So if that's your thing, look into this. The extra fine took 4.5 seconds. The 1.1 took 7, which isn't too bad because this is fairly hydrophobic paper. But again, in the time it took to, from writing that to then writing these 4.5 lines, when I picked up the 1.1 again, you see how this was dark and then it gets lighter and lighter and lighter? It dries on the nib. It's really weird. Now, as I say here, no bleed, no feather, no echo, no sheen. Very well behaved in that regard. I thought I'd see more gray resting at the bottom, but no, there's really not a lot of water resistance, so yeah. Now, next up is Tomoe River Paper, and like what I said about the drawing on the nib thing, see if that'll come on camera. You see the G and the A, you see the shiny, and it's actually even in the extra fine. You get some sheen, but only when it dries on the nib. You can lay it on as thick as you want, you will not get sheen, but if you let it dry on the nib, you'll get sheen, which is weird. Now, this paper does tend to draw out dry times, which it did, a tiny bit. The extra fine took 6 seconds instead of 4.5, and the 1.1 took 9. Now, I love the look of a halo effect, and this is exactly what I mean by halo effect. You have this dark outline around the wettest parts. See that? I think that looks cool. However, here, because of the way ink pools on this type of paper, I mean, this looks pink. I mean, this looks very thin. It looks undersaturated. Oh, look, again, you get the sheeny thing. And this weird drying on the nib stuff, I don't know what to make of that. But yeah, there's no bleed, no feather, no spread. Echo might be a thing, ish, depending on how sensitive you are. This is extremely thin paper, and this is fairly watery ink, so it should not be a problem. But yeah, so this paper loves to let ink slide away when you add more water. And oddly, it turned like a peachy, salmony pink thing going on here. But yeah, a lot of it washed away. I mean, most of it's completely gone in the extra fine. That would not be fun to recover. Now for the next 3 tests, oh, who's calling me? Who has the worst timing in the world? Anyways, for these 3 more absorbent papers, I only use the extra fine, except to write the name. I may have to edit that out. Anyways, yeah, it looks almost pink here. It looks less like a weak maroon, and yet it still looks undersaturated. It still manages to look watery. It's not what I like to see. But yeah, 1.5 seconds to dry, which is kind of surprising, because this is very absorbent paper, and this was an extra fine nib, but I mean, that's cool. 1.5 seconds isn't very long, so awesome. Yeah. What was interesting was that there was the same amount of like bleed that you'd see throughout with the extra fine as you'd see with the 1.1, which is really not much at all. You could tell that it had, seeped into the page, but it wasn't close to coming to the other side. So that's nice, it doesn't want to bleed on 20-pound copier paper. So if you got to use a red-ish on 20-pound copier paper, cheap paper, this could be totally your thing. Now, because it's more absorbent, it sucks the ink in, makes it harder to wash out. So there is a decent amount left, but do you see how hazy it got? And it kind of feathered and exploded. I don't know how easy that would make it to recover, but now here's Mead Notebook Paper, where again it kind of looks somewhere between a pink and a watery maroon. You don't really, or do you? I mean, no, I'm not going to call that shading, but it took 2 seconds to dry, which isn't bad. There is a teeny bit of spread. There is a teeny bit of feathering. Like, you see just like hints of it. It's not like in your face feathering, which is nice. There's no bleed. Nothing made it to the other side. It did seep into the paper, but it did not make it to the other side. So that's great. If you use Mead, an extra fine, and you need red, this could be a good setup for you. Yeah, it did. I mean, this paper hates water, but it feathered and exploded. You do kind of see a bit of that gray at the center, but yeah, it's kind of a mess. Now, lastly is Moleskine notebook paper, which I generally hate with a fiery, fiery vengeance because it hates ink. Period. Anyways, it just hates ink. What kind of paper hates ink? Anyways, moving on. Again, it looks really watery. You can see the lines through the ink. It looks undersaturated. But yet here you still retain some shading, as you can see. And you see it in the writing as well. However, let's bring this in real close. if my camera will focus on what I want it to. Do you see all this feathering? You see the wet wool texture? It's not flattering, and for some reason it took 6 seconds to dry. I really can't explain that. Yeah, but there's no bleed. Essentially, there is no bleed. There is some near bleed in the scrubby, but I mean, that's the scrubby. So, yeah, if you don't mind it looking like a sheep caught in the rain, this could be really great if you need to write on both sides of Moleskine. It's, if you like this color, go for it. Yeah. However, this paper hates ink and it hates water, so ink and water is just a disaster. I mean, that W is completely gone, and then that A, which remained feathered and exploded. Anyways, there you go for your consideration. Graf von Faber-Castell's Garnet Red. It's maroonish. It's unique. I don't have anything quite like this. Personally, I'm going to count that as a good thing, but perfectly good ink. It just has some qualities that are not to my preference. However, it was actually quite well behaved on cheap paper and an extra fine, so if you need it for that kind of situation, definitely look into it. For your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Bye.